Hello and welcome to a presentation on filling out the case report form for the Across study in Lao. The following presentation does not go into any details on the CRF on the case report form, but just provides a general overview on how to fill the form out. I will start off with some general guidelines. First of all, one CRF, one case report form needs to be filled out for every participant. For reasons of confidentiality, the full name of the study participant should not appear anywhere on the CRF. Instead, each participant is assigned a participant-specific unique study ID, and this study ID needs to be recorded on every single page of the CRF. The reason for this is if multiple CRFs later on fall apart at the same time, it will still be possible to put each CRF per participant back together. When filling out the CRF, always remember that the data that you record will later on need to be read and entered into a database by the data manager. So it is essential that the CRF is filled out as clear as possible. Therefore, fill all entries in capital letters using a black or blue ballpoint pen. Do not use a pencil, crayon, or any other color. Where a choice is requested, always check or tick with an X in the appropriate response. Do not use any other symbol. All text and explanatory comments should be kept as brief as possible. Also, kindly answer every question explicitly, but do not use ditto marks. Only enter results in the fields provided. Do not add any fields. Also, do not add any additional information outside of fields because this cannot be recorded in the database later on. Also, do not leave any questions unanswered. On the next slide, I will explain what to do in case information is not available. For example, in the absence of a precise date, a partial date may be written as follows. Don't know for the day, don't know for the months, and then the year, for example, 2018. Kindly also remember that all time formats must be in a 24-hour format. For example, 1:45 in the afternoon would be recorded as 13:45. But coming back to the situation, to the scenario where information is not available. So if the answer to a question is unknown, write DK for don't know. If a requested test was not done, check ND, which stands for not done. If a question is not applicable, for example, the question of pregnancy in males, check NA, which stands for not applicable. If, for example, a malaria smear was done, but the slide could not be read due to poor quality, check NC, which stands for not counted. Also, always make sure to enter your name and date where required. We all make mistakes. I make them on a permanent basis. However, if you do make a mistake, that is no drama at all. Just make sure that the correction follows a specific standard. Cross out erroneous data entries with one line only and write the new entry above the old entry. Put your initials next to it as well as the date when you did the correction. The idea behind this is that it should still be possible to read the erroneous entry, and the data entry person can later on compare it to the corrected data entry. Changes can, in principle, only be made by the person who also completes the CRF. This should not be done by anybody else. It is unacceptable to use correction fluid or obliterate any entries. Also, do not erase any entries. Having said all this, once you actually start entering data, the first thing is quite obvious. Make sure that you have the correct version of the CRF. Secondly, before filling out any additional information, make sure that the header information is correct and repeat that on all pages of the CRF. Make sure that you have provided appropriate signatures where required and that the date and time format should be consistent per requirements on the CRF completion guidelines. Once all of the data has been collected and entered correctly, the CRF needs to go for data entry. This is done by the data management team. All of the data should be entered as seen on the CRF. If the handwriting cannot be read and or if there are any questionable entries, the data entry clerk checks directly with the data collection staff. The data entry clerk raises and resolves these queries directly with the site staff, either by telephone or in person. In the case of obvious errors, and there is very few, the data clerk is allowed to make corrections. For example, if the year 1919 was entered, however, it's quite obvious that the data collection person is referring to the year 2019. However, there is very few cases where these corrections can be made without feedback from the field. And that's the end of this talk. Thank you so much for your attention.